Clan MacLeod of the Lewis, commonly known as Clan MacLeod of Lewis, is a Highland Scottish clan, which at its height held extensive lands in the Western Isles and west coast of Scotland. From the 14th century up until the beginning of the 17th century there were two branches of MacLeods: the MacLeods of Dunvegan and Harris, and the MacLeods of Lewis. In Gaelic the MacLeods of Lewis were known as Saol Thorcail, and the MacLeods of Dunvegan and Harris were known as Saol Thormoid. The traditional progenitor of the MacLeods was Laud, whom tradition made a son of Olaf the Black, King of Man and the Isles. Tradition gave Laud two sons, Tormod, progenitor of the MacLeods of Harris and Dunvegan, and Thorcail, progenitor of the MacLeods of Lewis. In the 16th and early 17th centuries the chiefly line of the Clan MacLeod of the Lewis was nearly extinguished by the bloodthirsty and power-hungry chief, Old Rory, and his various offspring. This feuding directly led to the fall of the clan, and loss of its lands to the Clan Mackenzie. One line of the 16th century chiefly family, the MacLeods of Raasay, survived and prospered on their lands for centuries thereafter. The current chief of Lewis descends from this latter family. Today both the Clan MacLeod of the Lewis and Clan MacLeod are represented by associated Clan MacLeod societies, and the chiefs of the two clans. The association is made up of 9 national societies across the world including Australia, Canada, England, France, Germany, New Zealand, Scotland, South Africa, and the United States of America. Traditional origins: Olaf the Black. Today the official clan tradition is that the MacLeods descend from Laud, born around 1200. Traditionally, from Leod's son Tormod, the MacLeods of Harris and Dunvegan claim descent, and through Leod's other son Thorcail MacLeods of Lewis claim descent. The earliest evidence of this traditional descent from Olaf the Black may only date as far back as the 17th century. From the era of Ian Moore MacLeod, who was styled John MacLeod of Dunvegan, in a document dated 1630. Also, his son Ian Breek is thought to have been the first MacLeod to incorporate the coat of arms of the Kings of Man into his own coat of arms, because the MacLeods imagined themselves descended from King Olaf of Man. Laud, the traditional eponymous ancestor of the clan, does not appear in contemporary records, or even the Chronicles of Man, which lists the 4 sons of Olaf. After the last king of this dynasty, Magnus Olafsson, died in 1265, and after the last known male representative of the family fled from the Isle of Man to Wales in 1275, the claims of the Isle of Man was taken up on behalf of the daughters of the family. This, according to Andrew P. MacLeod, implies that the legitimate male line from Olaf the Black was by then extinct. In short, there is no historical reason to believe that Laud was the son of Olaf the Black. Clan lands and the Nicholsons, MacNichols. Recently several historians have shown a connection between the early clan and the Hebridean Nicholsons, MacNichols. W.D.H. Seller and William Matheson pointed out that in lands held by the clan, there were traditions of the Nicholsons, MacNichols, preceding them. Of Louis itself, tradition had it that the MacLeods gained the island through a marriage with a Nicholson heiress. Both Seller and Matheson agreed that the traditional connection and the gaining of lands through the Nicholsons explains the MacLeods of Lewis' identity as a clan separate from the MacLeods of Harris and Dunvegan. Also, even though the heraldry of the MacLeod of the Lewis is very different from that of the MacLeod of MacLeod, there may be a connection with the Hebridean Nicholsons, MacNichols. In their coat of arms, the MacLeods of the Lewis have a black burning mountain on a gold field. According to Seller, when the MacLeods married the Nicholson heiress of tradition, her arms would have likely passed to the MacLeods as well. The Hebridean Nicholsons, MacNichols, were supposed to have held their lands in the Western Isles from the Norse rulers for their services as coast watchers. Hence the burning mountain on the arms of MacLeod of the Lewis. History: 14th and 15th centuries. The earliest reference to the MacLeods of Lewis is found in a royal charter granted in the reign of David II, King of Scots. when Torquil MacLeod was granted the fourpenny land of Assynt, possibly in c. 1343. In this charter Torquil had no designation, showing that he held no property until then. By 1344 the MacLeods of Lewis held the Isle of Lewis as vassals of the MacDonalds of Islay. In time the MacLeods of Lewis grew in power, rivaling the MacLeods of Harris, with lands stretching from the islands of Lewis, Raasay, the district of Waternish on Skye, and on the mainland Assynt, Coigach and Gaelic. In 1406 a party of MacLeods of Lewis were defeated at the Battle of Tuatim Tarbich against a party of Macays. The cause of the battle, according of tradition, was the ill-treatment of Sidheg, widow of Angus Mackay of Strathnaver, by her brother-in-law Hutchin, tutor of Mackay. Sidheg was also the sister of the MacLeod of the Lewis, and consequently a contingent of MacLeods of Lewis led by the chief's brother, Giles Cowan-Beag, encountered a party of Mackays in Sutherland. During the battle that followed, the MacLeods were routed and Giles Cowan-Beag was slain. 16th century. In 1528, the chief of the clan, John MacLeod of the Lewis, supported his half-brother, Donald Grew, Imish MacDonald of Sleat, who had seized the lands of Trotternish from the MacLeods of Harris and Dunvegan. Domnall Dubh was proclaimed Lord of the Isles by many families who had once served under Clan Donald: the MacLeods of Lewis, the Camerons of Lochiel, the MacLeans of Jewett, the MacLeans of Lochbuie and the Macquaries of Ulver, the MacNeils of Barra and the MacDonalds of Luggy. The only families which remained loyal to the crown were the MacLeods of Harris and Dunvegan, and the Maeshurans of Arden and Mercon. Upon the collapse of the rebellion, and Domnall Dubb's death in 1545, Rory was pardoned for his treasonable part in the rebellion, though it is clear he and his clan continued to act independently of the Scottish government. In 1554 letters of fire and sword were issued for the extermination of Rory MacLeod of the Lewis, John Moydetatch of Clanranald and Donald Gormson MacDonald of Sleat after they all refused to attend Parliament at Inverness. Fall of the clan. The fall of the clan, the extinction of the original line of chiefs, and loss of the Isle of Lewis, began with Rory and his marriage to a daughter of John Mackenzie of Kintail. This marriage had produced a son named Torquil Conanac. Rory later disowned Torquil Conanac on account of the alleged adultery between his wife and the Morrison Breve of Lewis. Rory's wife later abandoned him and eloped with a cousin of his, John McGilly Challam of Raasay, after which Rory divorced her. In 1541 Rory married Barbara Stewart, daughter of Andrew Lord Avondale, and by her had a son named Torquil Ora. In about 1566 the legitimate son Torquil Ora drowned along with 60 of his supporters while sailing from Lewis to Skye across the Minch. Immediately the disinherited Torquil Conanac took up arms, supported by the Mackenzies. He captured his supposed father Rory, and for the next 4 years kept him as prisoner under dreadful conditions within the castle of Stornoway. Rory was only released from captivity by agreeing to recognise Torquil Conanac as his lawful heir. In 1572 Rory was then brought before the Privy Council where he was forced to resign to the crown his lands of Lewis, Assynt, Coigach and Waternish. These lands were then granted to Torquil Conanac as his lawful heir, and he only received them back in life rent. When Rory had returned to Lewis he revoked all he had agreed to on the grounds of coercion on June 2, 1572. Later in 1576, Regent Morton was successful in reconciling Rory and Torquil Conanac, where Torquil was again made lawful heir and also received charter to the lands of Coigach. Sometime later Rory took for his third wife a daughter of Hector Og MacLean of Jewett, and had by her 2 sons, Torquil Dubh and Tormod. Rory also had several natural sons, Tormod Uigach and Murdoch. Rory then made Torquil Dubh his heir, and again Torquil Conanac took up arms supported by the Mackenzies. Rory was aided by several of his illegitimate sons, including Donald, Rory Og and Niall, though 2 others, Tormod Uigach and Murdoch, aided Torquil Conanac. In the encounter that followed, Rory was again captured, and many of his men were killed. Upon Torquil Conynach's victory, all charters and title deeds of Lewis were handed over to the Mackenzies. Rory was held captive in the castle of Stornoway, commanded by Torquil Conynach's son John, though was freed when Rory-og attacked the castle and killed John. Upon his release, Rory ruled Louis in peace for the rest of his life. Upon the death of Rory MacLeod of the Lewis, the chieftainship of the clan passed to Torquil Dubh. In 1596, Torquil Dubh, with a force of 700 or 800 men, devastated Torquil Conynach's lands of Coigach and the Mackenzie lands of Loch Broom. In consequence, Torquil Dubh was summoned to appear before the Privy Council and was declared a rebel when he failed to appear. Torquil Dubh was finally betrayed by the Breve of Lewis, chief of the Morrisons of Ness. Once captured, the Breve sent Torquil Dubh to Coigach, where he and his companions were beheaded by Torquil Conynach on the orders of Kenneth Mackenzie of Kintail in July 1597. Following this, Lewis was commanded by Torquil Dubh's 3 young sons and his illegitimate brother Niall. The MacLeods of Lewis were also aided by the MacLeods of Harris and the MacLeans. Loss of Lewis. Though Torquil Dubh had several sons, Donald Gore-More of Sleat considered himself an heir of the deceased chief of Lewis and invaded the island pursuing his claim. It was not until after causing much destruction that the MacDonald of Sleat chief was driven off the island by the Lewismen. Because the Mackenzies now had the title deeds of Lewis, the island was forfeited by the Act of Estates in 1597, which gave the Scottish government an excuse to attempt the colonisation of the island. During this era on Lewis, the MacLeods took part in the succession of feuds of their neighbouring clans such as the Morrisons and their enemies the Macaulays of Lewis. End of a line of chiefs. After the conquest of Lewis by the Mackenzies, Niall MacLeod and his nephews Malcolm, William and Rory, and about 30 others took refuge on Barasay in the mouth of Loch Roag on the west coast of Lewis. For almost 3 years the small group of MacLeods held out against the Mackenzies before being driven off. Niall then surrendered himself to Rory More MacLeod of Harris and Dunvegan, who then delivered both Niall and Niall's son Donald to the Privy Council in Edinburgh. Niall was brought to trial, convicted and executed in April 1613, dying very Christianly. Niall's son Donald was banished from Scotland, and ended up dying in Holland without any known issue. 2 of Rory-og's sons, Rory and William, were captured and hanged by Mackenzie of Kintail. The one remaining son, Malcolm, was captured at the same time, though escaped and harassed the Mackenzies for years afterwards. Malcolm played a prominent part in Sir James MacDonald's rebellion in 1615, and later went to Flanders. In 1616 he was again on Lewis, where he killed 2 gentlemen of the Mackenzies. Later he went to Spain, returning in 1620 with Sir James MacDonald. Commissions of fire and sword were granted to Lord Kintail and the Mackenzies against Malcolm MacRuairi MacLeod in 1622 and 1626. Nothing more is known of him. Nothing is known of the fate of Torquil Dubh's sons Rory and Torquil. With the end of the line of the MacLeods of Lewis, the title Lord MacLeod was the second title of the Mackenzie Earls of Cromarty. Also, the chiefship of the MacLeods of Lewis has passed to the MacLeods of Raasay, who hold it to this day. 20th and 21st centuries. Torquil Roderick MacLeod, 17th of Raasay, was a grandson of Loudon Hector MacLeod, and a farmer who lived in Tasmania. He had an interest in the history of the clan and matriculated arms at the court of the Lord Leon as MacLeod of Raasay. Later in 1988 he was officially recognised as Torquil Roderick MacLeod of the Lewis and chief and head of the baronial house of MacLeod of the Lewis by Lord Leon, King of Arms. In 2001 the chief of the clan died and was succeeded by his eldest son Torquil Donald MacLeod of the Lewis, and his younger son Roderick John MacLeod, 18th of Raasay. The present chief of Clan MacLeod of the Lewis lives in Sandy Bay, Tasmania, Australia. Today both the Clan MacLeod of the Lewis and Clan MacLeod are represented by associated Clan MacLeod societies, with the chiefs Hugh Magnus MacLeod of MacLeod, chief of Clan MacLeod, and Torquil Donald MacLeod of the Lewis, chief of Clan MacLeod of the Lewis. The association is made up of 9 national societies across the world, including Australia, Canada, England, France, Germany, New Zealand, Scotland, South Africa, and the United States of America. The ACM last held Parliament in 2006 on the Isle of Lewis. McLeod DNA. A DNA project concerning surnames MacLeod was conducted in around 2004, with the intent to determine if there was genetical evidence of a common ancestor of all MacLeods, and if so, where the founder may have originated from. The project consisted of about 400 male participants who submitted a sample of their Y-DNA. The project found that about 32% of the total sample shared the same haplotype. Therefore, it was determined that this percentage shared a common ancestor estimated at about 1,000 years ago. The conclusion of the study was that today 32% of MacLeods descend through the male line from a common ancestor. The study was unable to prove the founder of the MacLeods was of Norse origin, and concluded that the MacLeods may have originated from either Scotland or the Isle of Man. A more recent study of MacLeods determined that, out of 45 men with the surname, almost half of these men were descended from the same man. The genetic marker of this group is rare in the British Isles, and has been found not only in MacLeod territory, but also in Orkney, Shetland, and Norway. The study considered it to be evidence of a Norse origin of the clan's founder. Clan profile. Origin of the name. The clan surnames MacLeod and McLeod are anglicizations of the Gaelic patronymic name MacLeod, meaning son of loud. This Gaelic name is a form of the Old Norse personal name Ljotr, which means ugly. Clan chiefs. Branches of the clan are MacLeods of Assynt. In the early 15th century, the lands of Assynt were given in vassalage by Roderick MacLeod of the Lewis to his younger son, Tormod. This Tormod became ancestor of the MacLeods of Assynt. In the 16th century, the MacLeods of Assynt supported the Mackays of Aberarch, a branch of the clan Mackay, in a feud against their chief Huisteandu Mackay, 14th of Strathnaver. During this feud, the MacLeods of Assynt fought against the Clangun at the Battle of Leckmelm in 1586. However, the MacLeods of Assynt later sided with Huisteandu Mackay of Strathnaver in a feud against the Earl of Caithness. During the Civil War of the 17th century, following the Battle of Carbistale on April 27, 1650, where the Royalists led by James Graham, 1st Marquess of Montrose, were defeated by the Covenanters. Upon fleeing for his life, the Marquess of Montrose was given shelter by the wife of Neil MacLeod of Assynt at Ardvrech Castle, and then betrayed him to the Marquess of Argyll. Neil was the last MacLeod chieftain to hold lands in Aysnt. In 1672 he was denounced as a rebel, and commission of fire and sword was obtained against him, and his lands were conquered by the Seaforth Mackenzies. During the Jacobite Rising of 1745, while the MacLeods of Lewis supported the Jacobite cause, Hugh MacLeod of Guinness commanded an independent Highland company of the MacLeods of Assynt in support of the British government. The MacLeods of Rassay. The MacLeods of Rassay are descended from Gilla Callum MacLeod, second son of the Laird of Lewis. Alive in the mid to late 15th century, he wed Marion, daughter of John Gorm Campbell of Craignish. In 1597, John MacLeod Challim, brother to the Laird of Rassay, was killed at the Battle of Logie-Bride. The present chieftain of the MacLeods of Rassay is Roderick John MacLeod, 18th of Rassay, who lives in Tasmania, Australia. He is the brother of the present MacLeod of the Lewis. The MacLeods of Pabay and Uig. The branch called the MacLeods of Pabay and Uig descend from Norman MacLeod, first of Pabay and Uig, who was born probably California. 1480, and a son of Torquil McLeod, born California. 1380, Vice-Chief of the MacLeods of Lewis and his wife Catherine Campbell. Old Norman held lands at Hackleat, Irshada, Pabay and Bale-na-Killa. Members of this branch spell their name with a small l. Many ministers of the church and many doctors of medicine have been produced by this branch. Castles. Castles that have belonged to the clan MacLeod of Lewis have included MacLeod's Castle, Stornoway, Isle of Lewis, was held by the MacLeods of Lewis but was destroyed by Oliver Cromwell's forces in 1653. The island later passed to the clan Mackenzie, and later still Lewes Castle was built on the site by the Mathesons. Stornoway Castle, Stornoway, Isle of Lewis was held by the MacLeods of Lewis, but an earlier stronghold on the site that may date from the 11th century was held by the clan MacNichol. The MacLeods either forced the MacNichols from Lewis or married a MacNichol heiress by force, or both. The castle was captured by the clan Gordon, Earl of Huntly, in 1506, but managed to hold out against the clan Campbell, Earl of Argyll, in 1554. It was demolished by Oliver Cromwell's forces in 1653. Cromwell's forces were themselves allegedly massacred by the islanders. Rochelle Castle, a small and ruinous stronghold, 7 miles north of Clacton-on-Raasay, was held by the MacLeod of Raasay branch of the clan. Assynt Castle, also known as Ellen Assynt, 4 miles northwest of Inchnadamf on the mainland, was built on an island on Loch Assynt, but little remains. The castle may have been used as a prison after the clan moved to Ardbrek Castle. Ardbrek Castle, a later seat of the MacLeod of Assynt branch of the clan. It was sacked by the Mackenzies in 1672. Guineas Castle, near Tain, Ross, was held by the MacLeod of Guineas branch of the clan but passed to the clan Sinclair in 1624. See also Castles of the clan MacLeod.